My name is Detective Arthur Hale, and if you're here with me now, it means you're about to walk straight into the kind of case that keeps a man awake for years. But before we get lost in this maze, hit the subscribe button, leave a like, because cases like this one only continue when you're on the other side, helping me push forward. Now, let's begin. It happened in Hawthorn Meadows, a quiet American suburb where the lawns were trimmed, the mailboxes were spotless, and everyone pretended to know everyone. But the truth was simple. People only know what they want to know, and they ignore what terrifies them. It was 1996 when everything fell apart. I was at my desk late that evening, eyeing an unrelated case, when the phone rang. "Detective Hale, we need you at Aspen Court. Immediately." Aspen Court. A cul-de-sac so calm that even stray dogs walked quietly. When I arrived, police lights splashed red and blue across the white garages and newly washed driveways. Neighbors stood outside in pajamas, hugging their own arms, whispering rumors that always grew darker with every second. In front of house number 12, a mother cried so hard her voice came out in gasps. Her name was Heather Monroe. Her daughter Emily Monroe, 16 years old, had vanished. And the worst part, she disappeared from inside the house. No broken windows, no signs of forced entry, no screams heard, no struggle. Emily simply evaporated. When I walked inside, the home looked too clean. Not tidy clean, performed clean. The kind where every object looks like it was placed somewhere deliberately to look natural. Heather sat on the couch trembling. "Detective, please find her." Her husband, Mark Monroe, didn't speak. He kept adjusting his glasses, pacing back and forth. I took out my notebook. "Tell me exactly what happened." Heather wiped her face. "We went to bed around 10:30. Emily said goodnight. She was doing homework in her room. At 7 a.m., when I knocked to wake her for school, her voice cracked. Her bed was made, her backpack gone, and the window was slightly open." Mark added, "She probably snuck out. Teenagers do that." I turned to him. "Did she have a reason?" Mark shrugged too casually. "Kids are dramatic. Who knows? A father who reacts like that to a vanished daughter, that's not normal. Unless he was hiding something." I needed to see the room. Emily's bedroom felt staged. A textbook open on the desk, a necklace placed too neatly on the nightstand, a chair angled like someone had set it for show. But the bed, for a teenager, it was unusually perfect. No creases, no messy pillows, nothing personal lying around. Beds like that don't lie. Someone remade it after she disappeared. I kneeled beside the carpet, and there it was. A faint smudge. Not dirt, not makeup. Ash. Burned ash. Fresh. Someone had burned something inside this room quietly. The wastebasket was empty. Too empty. Someone cleaned up. Something in the air told me, whoever took her didn't plan it in panic. They planned it clean. While I was leaving the house, a neighbor rushed toward me, gripping her robe. "Detective, I saw someone last night." "Who?" "A man, standing in the Monroe's driveway, around 11:30. Did you see his face?" "No, but I saw his jacket, navy blue, with a reflective stripe." Reflective stripe, common on delivery drivers, security personnel, or garage mechanics. What was he doing?" She swallowed. "Just standing there, facing the house, not moving." She shivered, like he was waiting for someone to fall asleep. That was enough for me. A shadow. A watcher. The kind of man who doesn't break and someone who waits to be let in. I drove to the local high school. Teenagers know things adults pretend don't exist. Emily's best friend, Cassie Grant, sat with her knees pulled close, trembling. "Cassie," I said gently, "did Emily mention someone? Anyone she was scared of?" Cassie hesitated. She did, but she made me promise not to tell." "Cassie, she's missing. Whatever you say helps me bring her back." Her eyes filled with tears. "Okay." She said someone was watching her, following her. "Who?" Cassie lowered her voice. "She never said his name, but she said he didn't live far. She said, he always knows when I'm alone." A chill crawled through my spine. "Did she describe him?" Cassie nodded slowly. "Tall, wore a navy jacket, and he smelled like gasoline, Gasoline. The same detail that linked multiple earlier witness reports in other neighborhoods. Someone who worked with engines, machines, fuel, a mechanic, or someone pretending to be one. I returned to the Monroe home to confront the father. "Mr. Monroe, where were you last night between 10 and 7 a.m.? He pushed his glasses up, annoyed. "In bed. Asleep." Asked my wife. Heather immediately shook her head. "No, you woke up around midnight. You said you heard something outside." Mark froze. I stepped closer. "What did you hear?" Suddenly, his voice turned cold. "Nothing." I checked. There was nothing. But that wasn't the truth. I could hear it in the tone, the way liars answer too quickly. Heather looked even more confused. That was the moment I saw it. She didn't know she had slept through something. But he did. He knew exactly what happened. And he was terrified of me finding out. I asked to see Mark's car. He resisted. Of course, QSIM. But Heather allowed it. The interior looked clean. Too clean. Factory clean. I leaned inside. And there in the crease between the seat and the console, a single strand of long blonde hair. Emily's color. But Emily never rode in her father's car alone at night. Mark suddenly snapped. "Get out of my car, detective." I stepped back slowly. In that moment I realized he didn't kidnap her, but he helped someone hide what they did. An accomplice. A silent one. A terrified one. But an accomplice nonetheless. And the only question left was, who had the perfect alibi that he was protecting? Because the person who took Emily wasn't Mark. It was someone else. Someone the entire street overlooked. Someone who lived close enough to watch her every night. And someone who had already rehearsed this crime long before it happened. This case was just getting started. There's something you learn early as a detective. Suburbs don't hide crimes, they hide the people who commit them. Aspen Court was no different. Every freshly painted fence, every trimmed lawn, every perfect family photo taped to refrigerator doors. All of it was camouflage, and the person who took Emily Monroe was counting on that camouflage to keep him invisible. But he left something behind. Before leaving the Monroe household again, I stopped at the backyard fence. Heather had mentioned a few weeks back that one of the neighbors installed security cameras after some porch thefts. "Which house was it?" I asked. She pointed. "Second house to the left. A beige 2-story home with green shutters. Owned by Brian and Naomi Whitford." I walked over and knocked. Brian answered barefoot, wearing a faded college sweatshirt, holding a mug like he didn't want anyone to see how much his hand was shaking. "Detective Hale." I heard about Emily. Terrible thing. "Come in." Excessive friendliness. A subtle tremor in his voice. "People fear police visits for 2 reasons. Because they're nervous, or because they're guilty." I stepped in. "I'd like to see the footage from last night." His eyes dropped for half a second. Not long enough to be obvious, but long enough for me to catch it. Sure, let me pull it up." We walked to the living room. The house smelled like lemon cleaner freshly used. He inserted the tape into a small recorder and hit play. Timestamp, 10:14 p.m. The Monroe's house was visible on the far right side of the frame. Everything looked normal, but as midnight approached, a shadow appeared. Tall, thin, slow, standing at the edge of the Monroe property. Heather had said Emily's window was slightly open. Cassie had said someone was watching her. And the neighbor on the cul-de-sac had seen a man wearing a navy jacket. The shadow on the footage? Navy jacket, reflective stripe, exactly the same description. But then came the strange part. The shadow turned, looked directly into the camera, not startled, not surprised, as if he knew it was there, as if he didn't care. Then he walked away at a calm, steady pace, like he had all the time in the world. I paused the tape and leaned closer. Something about the man's posture. It felt familiar. "Mr. Whitford, do you recognize him?" Brian swallowed. "No, never seen him. Looks like maybe a delivery guy?" Liar. His voice cracked on the word, never. But this wasn't the time to confront him. Yet, before leaving, Brian offered a strange excuse. "Sorry for the mess, detective. We've been cleaning. My wife has a dust allergy." But the house didn't look messy. It looked sterilized. And when he guided me toward the door, a draft of air came from the basement staircase. Air carrying a distinct scent. gasoline, and old metal. My pulse steadied. Not excited detectives don't get excited. Focused. Brian noticed me look toward the basement door. Ah, that's just storage. My tools. Nothing interesting down there. He said it too quickly, too defensive, too eager to move me away. But again, not the moment to push. Not yet. As I left the Whitford home, noticed movement in the yard next door. A man was trimming hedges that were already trimmed perfectly. He wore thick glasses, old jeans, and a sweater with small holes at the elbows. James Alder, retired postman, lived in Aspen Court for 28 years. A man who saw everyone, every day. If anyone knew the dark truths beneath the polished lawns, it was him. Evening, Mr. Alder, I greeted. He looked up with a warm smile. Detective Hale, I suppose you're here about Emily. You heard anything unusual last night? His eyes sharpened, losing that soft warmth. People think quiet neighborhoods stay quiet. They don't. He lowered his voice. Last night, I heard a car door shut. Very late. Around 2:20 a.m., chest tightened. The Monroes claimed they slept through the night. No cars moved on Aspen Court after midnight except patrols. Which direction? I asked. He pointed toward the far end of the street, the old Willow Lane exit, which meant the car left the neighborhood instead of entering it. Do you know whose car it could have been? He nodded once. I do, detective. Silence. He waited for me to ask. People like Alder always test how much you want the truth. Mr. Alder, whose car was it? His answer came sharp as a blade. Brian Whitford's. Everything inside me clicked. Brian had a camera facing the Monroe household. Brian's house smelled of gasoline. Brian had wiped his floors clean. Brian was awake at the time Emily disappeared, and his car was seen leaving long after the abduction happened. But if Brian was the kidnapper, why film his own crime? And why hide nothing when looking into the camera? Unless he wasn't the one wearing the jacket. Unless he wasn't alone. I returned to the Whitford house at p.m. Naomi still hadn't appeared once. Odd for a suburban wife. I knocked again. Brian opened. Detective. Again? I have a few more questions. May I speak with your wife? His jaw tightened. She's resting. She's sick. I won't take long. No, she can't talk right now. Not, she's asleep. Not, she's tired. Just, she can't. That phrasing alone told me everything. There were two possibilities. Naomi knew something and Brian was hiding her, or Naomi wasn't in the house at all. If she wasn't, then where was she? I went back to Emily's room that evening to search deeper, not for fingerprints, not for fibers, for motives, for connections. Under the bed, behind a loose floorboard, I found a small wooden box shaped like something a teenager might hide love letters in. Inside were Polaroid photos, torn notes, a necklace, a movie ticket, and a small keyring with an oil stain smear. But the photos, they were all of Emily, taken from afar, zoomed in, blurry, and unmistakably intrusive. Different angles, different days, and one photo taken at sundown showed her standing outside school, with a navy blue jacket visible on the edge of the frame. A sleeve, just a sleeve, but sleeved arms take photos too. So if the man in the jacket took the pictures, why was one of them printed and hidden by Emily herself? Unless she knew exactly who he was, unless she feared him, unless she tried to gather proof against him. One more item inside the box made my blood pressure shift. A ripped envelope, with only two visible words, for Naomi. Naomi Whitford, the wife who couldn't talk. The wife who wasn't appearing. The wife who might have known Emily, or hated her, or was warning her, or hiding from her. This wasn't just a kidnapping anymore. It was a web, and every string pointed back to the Whitford household. There's a particular silence that only appears in the suburbs when a truth is hiding in plain sight. It's the quiet that comes before someone screams, before someone cracks, before someone finally tells the truth they've been protecting for too long. And inside the Whitford house, that silence was suffocating. Naomi Whitford wasn't resting. Naomi Whitford wasn't sick. Naomi Whitford wasn't even there. Brian was lying, and lying badly. But the worst liars are the ones who lie out of panic. And Brian Whitford was absolutely drowning in panic. I returned to his porch after dusk, The air was cold and thick with sprinklers and grill smoke from the neighbors who pretended not to notice the patrol cars rolling through Aspen Court. Brian opened the door halfway. "Detective Hale, what now? Where's your wife, Brian?" He blinked twice the way people do when their brain is scrambling for an answer they didn't rehearse. "Told you. Sick. Resting. Resting where?" Silence. His hand tightened around the edge of the door. "That's none of your," cut him off. "I know she isn't here." A muscle in his jaw twitched. "What are you trying to say?" I leaned in slightly. "Brian, I can smell the gasoline again." He froze. The same scent from the basement door. The same scent Cassie described on the man watching Emily. The same scent Alder smelled on the street at 2:20 a.m. Everything was pointing to the same place. "Let me see the basement." His voice turned sharp. Too sharp. "No, not. I'd rather not. Not. It's a mess." Just a hard, panicked no. That was my confirmation. But instead of forcing the issue, I stepped back. Pushing him too soon could make him destroy evidence, or worse. I decided to approach someone who didn't lie for a living. I visited Northfield High School again the next morning, not to speak with Cassie, to speak with someone who saw everything but pretended to see nothing. Miss Karen Lowell, the English teacher. She was the kind of woman who noticed every detail in everyone else's life, even when she wasn't invited to. When I entered her classroom, she stiffened like a deer caught in headlights. "Detective Hale, do you have news about Emily?" "Not yet, but I have questions." Her fingers fidgeted with the pile of graded essays. "I don't know anything. People who say that usually know something." She swallowed hard. Then she exhaled. "Fine. Emily came to me 2 weeks ago. She seemed scared." "Scared of who?" Miss Lowell stood and walked to the windows, lowering her voice. "She told me a woman was leaving notes in her locker." "A woman, not a man." That changed everything. "What kind of notes?" She hesitated. "Warnings. Telling her to stay away from a certain house." My heartbeat slowed. "Which house?" She finally said it. "The Whitford house." I felt a cold shadow cross the back of my neck. Did Emily say why Naomi was warning her? Miss Lowell nodded slowly. "Because Emily knew something. Something she shouldn't have. Something Naomi begged her to ignore." Naomi wasn't avoiding me because she was guilty. She was avoiding me because she was terrified. Of who? Brian. It had to be Brian. Naomi wasn't protecting herself. She was protecting Emily, and Brian knew it. I went back to the Monroe's home after leaving the school. Emily's father, Mark, met me at the door, but this time, he wasn't defensive. He was pale, shaking, exhausted. "Detective, Heather found something." They led me upstairs. In the hall closet behind blankets and winter coats, Heather had found a jacket, navy blue with a reflective stripe, covered in dust and smelling of gasoline. My heart pounded. "Where did this come from?" Mark shook his head. "It's not mine. I swear to God." Then Heather whispered, "It was stuffed behind the vent." Stuffed. Hidden. Panicked. Someone hid the jacket in their house. Someone who didn't want it found. Someone who had access. Neighbors. Family, friends. Repairmen. House guests. And one name surged to the surface. Brian Whitford. Brian visited the Monroes all the time. Heather had said it casually days earlier. I remembered now. He knew the layout. He knew the routines. He could slip in and out without anyone suspecting. And the jacket wasn't just evidence. It was a signature, left behind by someone who felt invincible, or someone whose plan was falling apart faster than he expected. I returned to Emily's hidden wooden box, studying the ripped envelope addressed to Naomi. There were faint indentations inside the envelope, flat pressure marks from a pen. People don't just rip envelopes for no reason. They rip them when they're scared of what's inside. Using a forensic lamp, the indentations revealed partial handwriting. "He knows. Stop before danger. Emily, please." Naomi's warnings weren't threats. They were desperate attempts to protect Emily from something or someone. This wasn't a jealous wife situation. This wasn't about rivalry or secrets or an affair. This was about fear. Naomi wasn't the problem. Naomi was the witness. A witness who vanished the same time Emily did. Which meant one thing. Naomi wasn't missing. Naomi was being hidden by the same person who took Emily. And if he was desperate enough to hide his own wife, Emily's time was running out. Back at the station, a forensic officer ran up to me with a report. Detective Hale, the ash you found in Emily's room? We analyzed it, and he handed me a bag with tiny burned fibers. It's from carpet. Industrial carpet. I stared at him. Industrial carpet? Not home grade, correct? From a workshop or a basement? A basement. A basement that smelled of gasoline. A basement Brian refused to let me enter. A basement where Naomi might be. Where Emily might be. Where the truth had been hiding the entire time. And now, there was no more room for hesitation. The perfect alibi was starting to crack. I drove to the Whitford house under heavy clouds. The kind that look like they're waiting for an excuse to break open. When Brian opened the door, I didn't ask permission. I walked inside. Detective, what the hell are you doing? I'm done asking nicely. He stepped back, too stunned to push me physically. I turned toward the basement door. The gasoline smell was stronger than ever. Brian rushed forward. You can't go down there. Then tell me where Naomi is. His face collapsed. He didn't deny it. He just collapsed like someone who had been holding a secret too heavy to carry. I never meant for this to happen. Where is she, Brian? He looked at the basement, then at me, then at the floor. His voice cracked. She's downstairs. My blood ran cold. And Emily? His eyes filled with terror. He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I already knew. Brian Whitford stood in front of the basement door, shaking so violently that the knob rattled under his palm. I've interrogated killers, liars, cowards, and masterminds. But the look in Brian's eyes was different. It wasn't the fear of being caught. It was the fear of what I was about to see. Brian, I said quietly, open the door. His fingers slipped twice before the key finally turned. The lock clicked open with a sound that punched straight into my spine. He stepped aside, shoulders collapsing inward. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I took a breath, drew my flashlight, and descended the first step. The smell hit me immediately. Not just gasoline, metal, mold, and something unfamiliar, something acidic, sharp, synthetic. A hum echoed below, like an old generator running low. The steps creaked under my weight. With every step, my mind repeated the same silent thought. Please let them be alive. The basement was colder than it should have been. A single bulb flickered overhead, casting long, trembling shadows across the cement floor. Tools hung from pegboards. Shelves lined the walls. Paint cans, chains, tarps, ropes. Everything arranged with obsessive precision except for the far corner. That corner was chaos. A tipped chair, ripped fabric, a broken ceramic cup, scattered crumbs of a granola bar. That was where someone had struggled and lost. I stepped deeper and then heard it. A breath. Soft. Shaking. Barely there. Naomi, I whispered. Something moved behind a metal storage cabinet. I rushed forward and pulled it aside. There she was. Naomi Whitford. Her hair messy, her face bruised, her wrists bound with zip ties. Alive, but exhausted. Her eyes widened with relief. Detective Hale, you're safe now. I need to know, where's Emily? Tears streamed down her face. I tried to warn her. I tried. Where is she? Naomi trembled so hard she could barely breathe. He took her, because she found out. She knew what he was doing. She confronted him. She said she'd go to the police. My heartbeat thundered. Naomi, who took her? The basement stairs creaked. Brian stood at the bottom of the staircase. But his face had changed. Gone was the terrified man from minutes ago. Now, he looked defeated, empty, like someone whose fate had finally caught up. It wasn't me, he said in a lifeless voice. I tried to stop him. My blood turned cold. Who, Brian? Who took Emily? His eyes lifted not to me, but to the ceiling above us, to the Monroe house, directly aligned with the basement overhead, to Emily's home. Mark. I froze. Mark Monroe, the anxious, stuttering father, the man who claimed Emily climbed out the window, the one who said she was dramatic, the one who changed his story, the one who pretended to pace in confusion when he was actually covering his tracks. Brian continued, voice breaking. He came to me the night she vanished. He told me Emily discovered something about him, something from years ago, something he couldn't let come out. Naomi sobbed. He threatened Brian, forced him to hide me. He said if anyone suspected him, Brian would be blamed. Brian collapsed against the wall. He said he'd make it look like I kidnapped both of them. He wore my jacket. He used my car. He framed me perfectly. I felt a rush of fury. Mark's calm demeanor, his fake helplessness, the way he tried to steer suspicion toward Emily running away. The man never paced out of worry. He paced out of guilt. Where is Emily? I demanded. Brian pointed to the far corner of the basement. A heavy metal trapdoor lay flush with the cement floor, blending almost seamlessly invisible unless you were looking for it. I ran to it. The metal was cold. Too cold. I pulled the latch. The hinges groaned open. The smell of damp earth rushed up. Below was a narrow shelter, a reinforced storm cellar built decades earlier. I descended quickly, flashlight sweeping. Emily was there, alive, terrified, but alive. Her wrists were tied, but she was conscious, curled in a corner, eyes wide when the light hit her. Detective Hale, you're safe now. I've got you. She burst into tears, shaking uncontrollably. I cut the restraints and helped her stand. Emily. It's over. You're going home. She clung to my arm, whispering. It wasn't Brian. It wasn't Naomi. It was my dad. I nodded. I know. Police swarmed Aspen Court within minutes. Mark Monroe didn't run. He walked onto his porch with empty eyes, staring into nothing. Heather sobbed behind the officers, unable to speak. Mark's voice was calm. Too calm. I knew she'd ruin everything. I couldn't let her tell. You understand? Detective, sometimes you have to protect a family from itself. I stepped closer. No, Mark, you destroyed yours. He didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't beg. He simply lowered his hands for the cuffs. The perfect alibi collapsed in silence. Emily was reunited with her mother. Heather fell to her knees, sobbing into her daughter's hair. Naomi was treated by medics, bruised but safe. Brian was taken for questioning, but it was clear he had been a pawn, not a monster. As the sun began rising, Aspen Court changed. The illusions shattered. For the first time, neighbors realized the truth. The danger wasn't the man in the navy jacket. It wasn't the mechanic. It wasn't the stranger in the shadows. The real monster lived in the pretty white house with the perfect lawn, right next to theirs, hidden in plain sight, protected by silence. And the worst part, everyone missed him. Everyone except Emily, a girl who didn't stay quiet. A girl who saved herself by refusing to let evil disguise itself as family. Agora com voc, conseguiu descobrir o verdadeiro culpado antes da revelação. Identifico o erro no e perfeito de Mark Monroe. Reparu na pista que entregava a verdade deste o primeiro bloco. A resposta oficialia elgica completa do caso esto na descrição do vídeo. Veja se voc realmente detetive da sala de evidências.